Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you believers, innamal khamru, indeed intoxicants, khamr, alcohol, wal maysiru, and gambling, wal ansabu, and idol worship, wal azlamu, rijsun min amal ash-shaytan fajtanibuhu la'allakum tuflihun. You see, when you read this ayah, and the ayah speaking of a combination of the things that were mentioned in the other verses, vain talk, music, gambling, idol worship, here we then start picturing an environment, a place that has music, okay? It has singing, but it also has belly dancing. It also has, for example, strippers. It also has intoxications and drinking. It also has some people gambling. It also has some fraud going on. Allah puts all of those in one home, and then He says, رِجْسٌ مِّنْ عَمَلِ الشَّيْطَانِ فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ. This is amongst the deeds, the actions, the lifestyle of shaitan. Refrain from it. And that is why when you come to a hadith that say, do not go in a home of ghina and music, for Allah does not enter it. Do not enter a home that has the tools of gambling. Allah dislikes it, the malaika do not enter it. We put one on one together. There is a home that has the tools of gambling, alatul qimar as the scholars call them, and alatul lahw, many different tools that were used for parties, or the tools that created music. Those homes, the malaika do not go to them, Allah dislikes them. Why? So if I were to have an iPod or an iPhone in my home that plays music, malaika don't end up coming to my home? Or for example, if there was a piano in my house and I was praying in this house, so my salah is not accepted, my supplication is not accepted, Allah dislikes this home. We have to understand, brothers and sisters, at that time, since the beginning of Bani Umayyah, this representative of God would sit and they would bring him the wine, and they would bring him the girls, and some of them they would bring the young boys, and they would sit, the Khalifa of Rasulullah, and there is gambling and music and haram in those homes. Then at that time they went and they asked Imam al-Sadiq, Ya ibn Rasulullah, what about this music, al-ghina? Is it in the Quran? These false statements, the false words, things that take you away from Allah, was happening in that time? And the Imam responded accordingly. People weren't going into shops and listening to music, in the elevator and listening to music, watching YouTube and listening to music. There was no commercials that had music, so that the Imam would differentiate. If it's in a commercial, it's halal. If it's an ABC song, it's halal. If it's countryside music, it's halal. But if it's, the type that it involves drinking and belly dancing and nudity and the rest of it, it's haram. At that time, it was all combined together. There were houses known as biyut al-ghina, fusq, fujur. There was everything happening in them. It wasn't that there was a restaurant that offered food that played some mellow music in the background. There was no such a thing. So they asked the Imams, and the Imams of Ahl al-Bayt were extremely firm that this is haram. Now some of them, they could not go to the Khalifa's house every night, and obviously they didn't do this so publicly. Some of them did, and some of them privately. Muawiyah, for example, told his son, be pious during the day and drink during the night. This is my solution to you. Some of them could not go to the Khalifa's home every day. So what did they do? They started their own homes. Own homes, and within those homes there was music. Was it? But not just music. When there was music, there was belly dancing, there was singing, there was alcohol, there was all sorts of sins. So those homes then became homes of sin. And the primary thing that was happening there was ghina, music and dancing. So they became forbidden places. People would come to the Imam and say to him, can I go to those homes? He says, no, Allah doesn't want you to go. The malaika do not enter those homes. An average person wasn't buying a piano and taking it to their home. That is why many of those so-called khulafa, they kept invading land and invading country and taking innocent people as slaves, especially if there were girls that knew how to dance and sing. The Khalifa liked them. Go bring them to me. So some they came to the Imams of Ahlul Bayt. What about ghina, music, singing? They looked at people as objects, obviously. If she knew how to sing, if she knew how to dance, then her price was more. The Imam wants to abolish this. So he says it's haram, don't do this. Don't go after it. Don't buy such slaves and bring them into your home. Allah will dislike this home. It's only when I look at the history surrounding those ahadith and the history surrounding the writing of those books is when I better comprehend Islamic law. That's why when our books were written by our grand jurists that we study today, when they were written, and the time of the very first Shi'i government, the Safawi government, the Safawi dynasty, they also had music. They also had those things happening in their culture as well. And inshallah we'll speak about this. And the ulama and the scholars wanted to forbid the people from such acts. So they said ghina is haram. Even if it's done in the recitation of Quran. Because who were reciting Quran? You go to this guy's house and he brings the singer. Sometimes the singer reads Quran and then other times it sings. It had one job. So the scholar said this is haram. Don't bring those singers and tell them to read Quran because they were still attractive to people. Imagine if Justin Bieber sits and reads Quran for 5 minutes. What happens? People will listen to it. Why? Because it's him reading it, not because it's the Quran. So the ulama were firm against this. Don't bring singers and have them read Quran and the next day, they're belly dancing and singing. Keep the hurma of the Quran, the position of the Quran, the sanctity of the Quran, and the honor of the Quran in its place by ensuring that those people don't come near the Quran. So when we come and we look at the ayat, we look at the hadith, we look at the statements of the scholars, what do we conclude with? We conclude with the following, that you do not need me or any scholar to come and tell you that, for example, some of the lyrics of this rap music is haram. And if you're waiting for a scholar to come and tell you you can listen to 50 Cent or Eminem or Snoop Dogg, that's not going to happen. And you don't need any scholar to come and tell you that this is haram. Why? Because they're sitting there and in their lyrics, one of them says, we drink until 4 in the morning. The other one says, no, we drink until 6 in the morning. The other one says 8 in the morning. No, we're drinking until next day at noon. Who's going to tell you that this is halal? No religion will tell you this is halal, let alone the religion of Islam. No one with dignity and human respect and wisdom will tell you that this is halal. And how do you realize that Islam is more discussing a greater issue? And that is the culture surrounding music. I realize it's haram when I look at the clips, the music clips on MTV. The lyrics go hand in hand with the MTV clips, the music clips. Are you going to try to convince yourself that those music clips are halal? they're okay for you to watch. This music is not the type of music that is disliked by Allah. But once we look at the whole thing and put it in perspective, we realize that today, if our youth, whether it's a 7-year-old or 10-year-old or 15 or 20-year-old asking us about this kind of music, it's haram and it will remain haram. And if they're asking us about, for example, music that discusses the countryside and where they grew up, or their country, or standing in front of oppression, or family values that do not take them astray from God and are not seen as false statements, then there are scholars today who have made this distinction and have given new laws and new perspectives in this regard. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.